Yes, indeed, God's unmerited mercy on a formerly Judeo-Christian nation that has turned its back on him. Britain voted, almost I would say miraculously, to leave the European Union. Hopefully it will stay the course and get out. For many years, many people, myself among them, and I mean well over 30 years, have been warning that what we see transpiring in Europe is the embryo of what the Hebrew prophet Daniel saw in Daniel chapter 2. And so I'm looking just at Daniel chapter 2 in terms of the last world confederation, which would in some way reconfigure the European powers that were part of the Roman Empire. You, O king, in verse 31, speaking of Nebuchadnezzar's image, were there was a single great statue, the statue which was large and extraordinarily splendid, was standing in front of you, and its appearance was awesome. The head of that statue was made of fine gold. The head was Babylon. That is the mentality of the world. It is based on wealth, the pursuit of wealth. That is the meaning of government. That is the meaning of economy. That is the meaning of religion. That is the head, the mind of the world. You can't worship God and mammon. Those who trust in the temporary riches of this world, that is the way everything thinks. Diplomacy, strategic relationships, the outworking of affairs of governments and nations, it all comes down to the worship of money. That is the mind of Babylon, the world's confederation of its false religious system, its corrupt governments, and its corrupt economic system. That is the head. But then we continue to read, its breast and its arms of silver. The next was the Persian Empire, 2 arms. The Medes and the Persians was the silver. Gold is non-corrosive. It has some enduring value because it doesn't oxidize. Silver does oxidize. It's a precious metal, but it doesn't last as long. And either did the Persian Empire. It endured, but it did not last as the predominant world superpower very long. God just used it for his purpose in restoring Israel at that time. But then we continue to read even beyond that. Its breast and its arms of silver, its stomach and its thighs of bronze, and its legs of iron, its feet partially of iron and partially of clay. The next thing we see is the iron or the bronze, nachoshet in Hebrew. This is the Greek world. The reproductive organs, obviously, are in the abdomen and in the pelvic region, and that is bronze. Greece had the seminal influence on Western civilization. Western civilization, the Greco-Roman world and what came from it, originates in Greece. But from this comes 2 legs. The Roman Empire had an eastern half, which was Greek-speaking, and a western half, which was Latin and Greek-speaking. These were the configuration of the 2. It goes on like this. Its feet were of iron and clay and crushed them. You continue looking, and a stone was cut without hands, and it struck the statue of the feet and crushed them. Then the iron and the clay, the bronze, the silver, the gold, were crushed all at the same time and became like chaff from the summer threshing floors. And the wind carried them away, so that not a trace of them was found. But the same stone that struck the statue became a great mountain and filled the whole earth. This speaks to Jesus as the rock of our salvation. He will destroy the political economic confederation of the world. These nations come into play once again in the last days. Certainly Babylon, certainly the Greco-Roman Empire, and certainly Persia, Iran, which Daniel 10 tells us would emerge as a strategic threat to Israel in the last days. And then finally, the reconfederated Roman Empire, which would be the footstool of Antichrist. But when Jesus comes, he will destroy this. The stone that struck the statue became a great mountain and filled the whole earth. This speaks obviously of the millennial reign of Jesus that will replace the political, economic, religious system of the world. He goes on and he interprets it, but we're told the following, beginning in verse 40. There will be a 4th kingdom, as strong as iron, inasmuch as iron crushes and shatters all things. So like iron that breaks in pieces, it will crush and break all in pieces. In that you saw the feet and toes, partially of potter's clay and partially of iron. It'll be a divided kingdom, but it will have in it the toughness of iron, inasmuch as you saw the iron mixed with common clay. As the toes of the feet were partially of iron and partially of pottery, so some of the kingdom will be strong and partially will be brittle. And in that you saw the iron mixed with common clay. They will combine with one another in the seed of men, but they will not adhere to one another, even as iron does not combine with pottery. Some people naively were speculating for many years, as soon as you get 10 nations in the European Union, that's going to be it. It's not like that. The 10 has to do with something different. Right now, when you look at Europe, there are about 25 nations. The only ones that really count are the iron, not the clay. The weak nations simply try to adhere to the iron, but it doesn't stick. The countries that are in the European Union, but are also in NATO, and in the Western European Union, the WEU, which is separate from the EU, these are the 10 countries that matter. They are the 10 primary countries that were in the Roman Empire in continental Europe. Italy, Greece, Portugal, Spain, Germany, Belgium, France. There's 10, total of 10. These are the countries that are the most important, and somehow this will be the platform for Antichrist. The others will be in their orbit and try to adhere to them, but it won't work. They will try to make a federal Europe repeatedly, but it won't work because iron does not adhere to clay. But the other way they will do it is that they will mix the seed of men or combine with one another in the seed of men. They will push multi-ethnic, multiracialism and try to make a multi-ethnic society in Europe through the use of immigration as a means of social engineering. These things are never, ever, ever going to work. You have to understand what is happening. Why is Europe pro-ecumenical? And why is the Roman Church and the World Council of Churches pro-Europe? Europe is post-Christian, neo-pagan. These churches and religious institutions are no longer viable. They no longer have a purpose. Therefore, they need a political agenda to remain relevant to society. On the other hand, if you look at somebody in Ireland, the Celtic country, somebody in Austria, which is a Germanic country, somebody in Poland, a Slavic country, and somebody in Portugal, which is a Latin country, we've explained this before, they have nothing in common in terms of language, history, culture, cuisine. The only thing they have in common is in nomine Patri cum Filio cum Spiritus Sancto, Roman Catholicism. They need to have an ecumenical church to fuse these people together. Religion is one of the mechanisms to try to make the iron stick to the clay. They need to try to reverse the Reformation and push the ecumenical agenda under Rome to try to resurrect the Holy Roman Empire, which was neither holy nor Roman. Now, when you go back to the Holy Roman Empire, the religious access was controlled from Rome by the papacy. The economic and political access was controlled from Germany, where the emperor was chosen from. It's the same thing. Germany dominates Europe economically and politically, but then they need a religious counterpart to that. They also need to try to make the iron stick to the clay in terms of a rapprochement between the Eastern Orthodox and the Roman Church. Great Britain and Ireland were never fully part of the Roman Empire. Not even all of England. The southwest of England, Cornwall, Celtic England, was never part. Scotland was never part. The Emperor Hadrian built the wall across the north of England to keep the Picts and Scots from attacking York, the Roman capital of the north of England. The Irish were known as Hibernians by the Romans. The Romans didn't want them. The Romans said that all of their wars are happy and their songs are sad. That's how the Romans viewed the Irish. They really didn't want them. The Romans didn't make a lot of distinction between the Irish, the Scottish, and the Welsh. They saw them all as Celts. Wales was never part of the Roman Empire. Britain was never fully in it, only England, and not even all of England. I thank God that Britain is pulling away from this. I thank God that it's not going to be part of continental Europe if things keep going and God shows it mercy. But I don't think the battle is over yet. I think there will be other attempts to draw England back into the orbit. With England leaving, Ireland may, for economic reasons, be forced to leave. Nonetheless, I have no doubt that what we see transpiring now in Europe is undoubtedly the embryo of what Daniel chapter 2 predicts. It is setting the stage for the coming of Antichrist through economic, political, and religious integration, compounded by an attempted social and cultural integration, making the iron stick to the clay, creating an artificial unity in the seeds of men. We're not French, we're not German, we're not Italian, we're Europeans. That is what they're trying to do. Go back to the Holy Roman Empire, which was neither holy nor Roman. The nation state is disappearing. Now, we've explained this before. Federalism failed and collapsed along with socialism in Eastern Europe. The former Yugoslavia, the former Czechoslovakia, the former Soviet Union, these federal states broke up. Federalism is breaking up the United Kingdom. Wales, Scotland, Northern Ireland all have their own parliaments now. Federalism is failing and socialism is failing. Yet the European Union is trying to push something that has failed in Eastern Europe and it is failing in Britain. They're trying to push it in continental Europe. Federalism and socialism, an unelected socialist bureaucracy whose power trumps or supersedes the power of the national parliaments. Thank God Britain has gotten out of this, because without doubt, this is going to set the stage for the coming of Antichrist in collaboration with coming events in the Middle East. God has shown mercy on Great Britain. The faithful Christians in Britain have been praying and praying and praying. My hope now is that God will also show mercy on America and Canada and on Australia and New Zealand, the other English-speaking democracies. We don't deserve God's mercy, but may He give us one more chance to repent before Jesus comes. The European Union began as a common market. Surreptitiously and by stealth, it morphed into a political union, something that no one ever voted for or wanted. They use money to get people into it, and once you're into it, then it becomes political. Again, the head is always Babylon. It's always about the gold. Once the money goes that way, the rest will tend to follow. Money makes the fallen world go round, not Jesus. God has indeed had mercy. The issue was not simply the loss of British identity and sovereignty, or ethnic preservation of the Anglo-Saxon and Anglo-Celtic people. It was not even about those things. It was about the preservation of democracy itself, to be governed by Euro-socialist, godless people, making decisions on back of closed doors that they can impose above the power of your own elected officials. These bureaucrats who you can't even remove. On top of that is the European court system, headquartered in Strasbourg, in France, just imposing decisions with no democratic input from the people. Now, this is also happening in the United States, where the Supreme Court and federal judges legislate from the bench. This is absolutely a global phenomenon. We explained before, Jesus said in the last days, you will be brought before magistrates and kings. Notice he put the judiciary first. The judiciary will be a major threat to democracy, and already is. But we've had a small victory, a small respite. God has shown mercy to Britain. Why would they have resisted Hitler and Napoleon only to give their nation over on a silver platter to the Eurocrats? Why would this nation, that sunk the Armada and Lord Nelson's victory at Trafalgar, all to preserve Britain from European domination? Why would that happen? Why would the Act of Union, uniting England and Scotland to stop a Roman Catholic takeover of Great Britain, with Bonnie Prince Charles? Why all this history of resisting Europe when you have corrupt politicians willing to betray the nation? Well, God has intervened. He's answered the prayers of Christians. I don't know how far this is going to go. I don't know how long it's going to last. But I have no doubt it was the prayers of many Christians in Britain that has caused this to happen. Please may it come to its natural conclusions. And please may this period of respite open the door for a repentance and a resurrection of the true gospel preaching church in England, because the mainstream denominations are morally, spiritually, and ethically dead. The same in the United States. There's a reaction against the establishment. Again, I don't endorse political candidates, but I do hope that the Lord will show similar mercy to the United States that He's shown to Great Britain. Britons never, never shall be slaves. Rule Britannia, Britannia rules the waves. Britons never, never shall be slaves. But the glory goes to Jesus. He answered the prayer of the believers in the United Kingdom. My name is Jacob Prasch. God bless and thank you.